right, we'd like to call the meeting to order. If you're able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll do a moment of silent prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You'll remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. All right, at this time we can have public comments. People would go to the microphone and give their name and address, or whether they're a township resident or not. Oh, it's that, okay. Well, you can.
Resident. I live at 521 Belmont Drive in Ypsilanti, and I'm here today as a delegate and also as a citizen to make a complaint and also at the same time try to address the resolution that Ms. Swanson is familiar with. Okay, one of the things I'm saying is in our township, there has been many of my friends who are seniors who's not going to get a raise, okay, and they ain't expecting any prospect of a raise, right now is in fear of where they live in, their habitat, because the rents are being raised up on, even if they Section 8, the rents are being raised up to exorbitant amount, was just insane. Well, anyone on Social Security or disability can afford it. And I'm asking that this here council adopt a resolution and the ordinance that the city of Ann Arbor have, an ordinance that make it illegal to discriminate against a person because of their socioeconomic standing, all right? Because a lot of people getting kicked out because they're not rich. And that is not a way to spend your last years after working, help building this country up, worried and stressed out about.
Thank you.
Okay, so I ask that you adopt this immediately because for the simple fact, while we're here talking now, people are getting eviction notice. All right, wonder where they're gonna go. You know, Merry Christmas with your eviction notice. So again, as a delegate and as a citizen, I ask you to look at this here and put this on your agenda and to look it over and please adopt it ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Hi, I'm Anna Weatherspoon. I live at 1367 Concord Drive, Huron Heights Apartments, and I'm here with Rod to second what he's saying about what they're doing over there. They want to raise your rent. They don't want to do any improvements. You have to beg them to get anything to get done in your place. My hot water heater went out. Thank God they had one in stock, so they were able to replace that. But I have stuff that's going on within my apartment that they have yet to address. They haven't put any money into the apartment, but they want to raise the rent to, like he said, a high amount. I mean, I'm not on any sort of Section 8 or anything like that. I'm a single mom. I work every day. I work at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital. So I go to work every day and I come home. We've had shootings. Security is gone. They used to have security that would ride around. That's gone. It's like there's no safety net for us to be in with them. And like I said, I work hard every day. I pay my rent every day. But I feel for the people who Rod were talking about who are getting thrown out and they have nowhere else to go. And it's cold outside. It's wintertime and Christmas is coming. And this is what we're going to do for them. We're going to put them out. So I'm adding my 2 cents to what Rod said on a more personal basis because I've seen what they're not doing. And they want to increase our rent to do what? Only thing I've seen them do is paint our doors red and repaint the shutters black. That's it. We hardly maintenance. You have to, like I said, beg them to come and do something. in your house. And it might take 2-3 weeks or something. Like I said, I got cracks going up in my bathroom that is steadily getting bigger. And I reported it, I don't know, 5-6 times. And so now I guess I got to wait and see if the snow is going to bring my roof in on top of me. So it needs somebody to go in and address and fix them, not us, them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Jeff Castro, the current director of YCUA. As I expressed to the community and to the board, hello, I'm Jeff Castro from YCUA.
You turned it off, I think. I think you turned it off, did you?
As I expressed to the board
There we
a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, into the community that I'm the current director of YCUA, and after 37 years, I'm retiring next month, Christmas, and I'm here to present your new executive director, Mr. Luke Blackburn. Luke is a former employee of YCUA. He's worked for YCUA for 20 years, and then he went to the Great Lakes Water Authority, worked there for 5 years, and he's come back. And we have great confidence in him, and he's going to do wonderful things for YCUA. Would you like to say anything?
It's just a pleasure to be back to YCUA. Love that team. Would like to build upon the excellent reputation that YCUA has and continue to lead that utility into the future. Just really thankful for this opportunity and look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome, yeah. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent.
Sorry, real quick. I understand that there's going to be a vote on the proposed ordinance rezoning for, I believe is it RNL? And I just wanted to say, like, publicly, I just want to make sure that I understand, like, the expansion and talking about bringing jobs to residents. I think that's awesome. But I would also just want to, as being a former law enforcement officer, I want to make sure that, like, people that do have records, criminal records, have opportunity for those jobs. And so I just wanted to hear, if possible, more about, like, the plan to make sure that returning citizens and people with criminal backgrounds can get the opportunities as well, since I know, like, job opportunities helps to prevent recidivism, helps our community. So I just wanted to publicly just say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Alicia Dyer, Ypsilanti Township.
All right, any other comments?
Yes, I'd like to know if we're going to get a response from my complaints or
We don't respond at this meeting. We take in the public comments and we follow up. But I do want to, Ms. Witherspoon, I normally don't do this, but there is a process that we can help you with conditions of apartments. So, I can give you, it's ordinance@whitetown.org, or you can email, us, and either way, and we'll get, if you're having issues with them not responding to how your apartment is, health and safety issues, which you mentioned, hot water heater, cracks and stuff like that, please let us know, because we can directly help that and get an inspection on that in order to make sure that it is the health and safety of our residents are there. It's ordinance, ORDINACE, at whitetown.org, or BSTUMBA. And again, I normally don't respond during public comments. We wait till the next meeting, but since we just met with Huron Heights property managers about some of the issues that you raised as well. So we are, and we're supposed to have a follow-up meeting with them, right? Yes. Yeah. So I don't know when it is.
They haven't scheduled it yet.
So, but when we, we'll follow, I just want you to know that we are aware of this, a lot of the issues there, and we were meeting with them in order to give them to an opportunity to do the right thing. So, so far, they did give a response. We weren't exactly 100% happy with it, and we are starting to do rental inspections again. Due to COVID, we had stopped, inside rental inspections. So we're going to start those back up as well, and hired 3 additional people to replace 4 people who retired. But so we're going to do that effective January, starting actual inside rental inspections again to make sure the health and safety. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. The next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. We have the minutes of the November 2nd work session and regular meeting, the statements and checks, and the treasurer's report for September of 2021.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by Eldridge, support by Wilson, to approve the consent agenda. Are there comments? There's a few minor changes that we made to the minutes, and that was given to Clerk Rowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under Attorney's Report, do you have any general legal update, Mr. Winters?
Madam Chair, there's a couple items I at least like to address the board this evening. One is to at least identify or point out to the board, because we don't always see what goes on in the evenings and on weekends with our staff, but Fire Marshal Dan Kimball and Chief Billing Official Dave Bellers have spent an inordinate amount of time dealing with the former Little Run High School that was leased by the Ypsilanti Community Schools to a for-profit entity known as Play at the Cage, which converted the high school, for lack of a better way of saying this, into a minor league baseball training facility. We were going to inspect this building some time ago. COVID kind of delayed things. But when it was inspected, it was quite a shock to the fire marshal and to building official Bellers that this property had been leased without being code compliant. By that I mean it was not fire suppressed. There was a lot of public safety issues in regards to lighting, ingress, egress, no emergency generator, and so there was a do not occupy placard posted on that property. While I will get into more detail in my letters in the next few days, I just want to take a moment to point out that Fire Marshal Kimball and Billing Official Bellers, that their motivations and their dedication is to make sure that people that are attending these events, because they do involve baseball tournaments and other events that would have spectators, are protected. And at some point in time, we're going to have another, hopefully face-to-face conversation with the Ypsilanti Community Schools in regards to these buildings, which continue to be leased on 30, 40 years in some cases, or sold to other third parties without having zoning compliance verification submitted to the township and without having the building properly fire suppressed. And it always makes the township feel like we're the ones being the quote-unquote bad person by having to shut down a facility when that facility was not there legally to begin with. It was not operating safely. But again, I'll get into more detail, but again, you have two of the very best people, in my opinion, in the state in those positions, that being the fire marshal and the chief billing official. And they're very, very dedicated to ensuring that anyone who uses our facilities or any public buildings open to the public are there with the life, health, and safety being paramount and being protected. So again, I'll share more information on that specific situation in the days ahead. The next update is more of a reflection on the past year, and also maybe encouragement to the board as well as to the public at large in regards to where do you go from here in regards to the Opportunity Index. And it's been said in the past that, by politicians anyways, that sometimes certain situations occur where people never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And I think right now you're at that stage where, okay, what do you do with the information from the Opportunity Index? And how do you get people to unite in your community behind a project that is going to be for the benefit of the Eastern Washtenaw County population, as opposed to having one leadership style of being more along the lines of divide and conquer, as opposed to unite and build. And so what I'm referring to is that we have spent 2 years now trying to encourage the Washtenaw County Board and indirectly the YMCA to build a recreational facility, but yet much more than that, for Eastern Washtenaw County residents. We have labored for decades, it seems like right now, trying to bring equity to the eastern part of Washtenaw County. The U of M Poverty Solutions report simply validated what all of us over here knew for years, that US 23 was the unofficial boundary line between Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti, where they themselves acknowledge that privilege in Washtenaw County is divided by race and geography. And so all the different factors that go into the Opportunity Index, be it health, job access, education, economic well-being, education opportunities, quality of life, those were all supposed to be addressed in the plan that was put forward by the YMCA. And I believe they still could be addressed, but they have to be located in a location that the people who are in need of all those services can access those the most. Tonight you talked about transportation, accessibility, how that also determines at times the opportunity outcomes. So at this point in time, while the county continues to try and seek input as to how to best utilize the $75 million they received as part of the American Rescue Plan, I would really encourage this board right now, as we come to the end of the opportunity for the YMCA to locate on township property, to really continue to double down in your efforts to have a united front in demanding Washtenaw County live up to its promise to have a recreational facility located on the east side of Washtenaw County that would truly incorporate what we have in our resolution that we passed, that would actually bring forward all those opportunities of health, education, address the 18-year difference in life expectancy between people who live in Ypsilanti Township that are African American versus those who live in other parts of the county. And those can all be addressed if they are having a facility that's going to be designed to level the playing field. They have one in Ann Arbor, the Mary Lou Murray facility. They promised to build one in downtown Ypsilanti on Water Street. This board at that time resoundingly supported the building of a recreational facility on Water Street. The county was going to spend $15 million at that time. That fell through. The only entity that has continued to be consistent in its commitment has been Ypsilanti Township. We have continued to offer property, at times our most valuable property in the township, to locate a facility that would incorporate all of these quality of life indicators that are addressed in the Opportunity Index. And so I think at times the efforts to go out into the so-called community engagement will result in having the divide and conquer between groups as to how much money should we receive versus what is really at stake here. And what's at stake here is the future of the Eastern Washtenaw County youth, as well as the seniors and those who don't have the same accessibility to education as pointed out in the Opportunity Index. I can tell you firsthand that for myself, my parents came from Kentucky in 1948, and I was born into the former, what was then the Willerton Village, and is now actually part of the township golf course. And I went to public school at Willerton High School, Willerton school system, K through 12. And the one thing that does level the playing field is education. And if you have education opportunities, you can level the playing field, along with having, again, the health and the resources to make sure that you are successful. We're not getting those on the Eastern Washtenaw County. It's already validated by the study. And so the only question remains is, what can we do to ensure that the county does not just, I don't want to sound flippant here, but just like appease us by giving us what might be at times token or even crumbs, when we have a right to demand of the county that they fulfill their obligations to have truly a facility built in Eastern Washtenaw County that's going to be able to service all of the needs of the preschool children, the young children, and even the adults as they age. As we know right now, that is a major issue for adults in healthcare. And so as you end 2021 with not having a feasibility study from the YMCA, without having a financial commitment made by the Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, I would encourage this board to continue to focus on what is the most important item you could demand of the county board for those $75 million, and I still believe it comes down to actually having that facility built over here that would be it would group all of those inequity factors that were cited into one area that could address those issues. And again, I think it not only affects not only the township, it affects Superior Township, it affects the city of Ypsilanti, it affects Augusta Township. That's the Eastern Washtenaw County. When I say Eastern Washtenaw County, what I'm referring to. But I'm afraid that if they continue to divide and conquer with what at times may appear to be a good faith showing, unless this board can unite the other communities to stand up and demand that we receive what has been taken for granted in other parts of Washtenaw County, that will go from an opportunity index to perhaps having another lost opportunity. And so that's what I want to end the comments on in regards to. All this came about because of what went on during the YMCA efforts and the letters that were written and the context in which those letters were drafted, all tied into the opportunity index. And I would just encourage all of you to continue to show that same passion, that same leadership, and that same commitment to double down to make the county follow through on that commitment. If what they're saying is true, that these are their words too, that the privilege in Washtenaw County is divided by race and geography. And that's a true statement, and I think all of us recognize that it is a true statement. Then what are you going to do as a county board to rectify that inequity? And I believe that what was set forth in the mission statement by the YMCA is one that would address those inequities. But unless the county board releases those funds to do so, we're going to be having the same conversation 5 years and 10 years, just as many of us on this board have had the conversation during the last 20 years, 25 years. So that's all my comments are in regards to the recreational facility, because we have spent so much time in 2020 and 2021 trying to get that off the ground that I'm afraid that I hate to see all the work and labor of this board and many others be in vain if we do not make one last concerted effort to really push the county board for that demand. And they have the money to do it now, because the $75 million is not something they were expecting to receive. And there's no reason now why they cannot not give back. They cannot enter into a contract with this board to do exactly what they were going to do in the city of Ypsilanti 15 years ago, and what they say is important to them today. There is no reason why, there's no good reason why, there may be a reason why, but it's not valid. And that's what I would ask the board to continue to double down on your efforts and exercise your leadership and your voices to focalize on one major accomplishment from those funds, and that to me would be the one that matters the most. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winter. The next on the agenda is under old business. It's a second reading of Resolution 2123, proposed ordinance 2021-497, an ordinance to rezone 1441 Russell Street, being parcel ID K1110160000 from the current RM2 multiple family district zoning classification to the I1 light industrial district zoning classification with voluntary conditions in writing by the applicant. The first reading was held at the October 19, 2021 regular board meeting. Clerk Rowe?
I have Resolution 2021-23 in reference to Ordinance 2021-497. I have the rezoning of 1441 Russell Street, parcel number K1110160003. Whereas at its regularly scheduled meeting held on October 27, 2020, the Charter 19th of 2021, the Charter Township of Ypsilanti Planning Commission recommended that the Township Board of Voluntary Conditional Rezoning requested pursuant to MCL 1253405 for a certain parcel of property comprising of 8.24 acres, commonly identified as 1441 Russell Street, parcel ID K1110160003 from RM2 Multiple Family Residential Zoning District to the I1 Light Industrial Zoning District with voluntary conditionals in writing by the applicant. Whereas the entire development includes three parcels, parcels K1110280019 and K1110160002 are Zone I1 General Industrial, parcel K1110160003 is Zone RM2. The developer desires to conditionally rezone parcel K1110160003 of the property from RM2 Multiple Family Residential to I1 Light Industrial. The purpose of the rezoning is to develop the property for the primary purpose of expanding an existing use of property as a freight terminal. Whereas proposed ordinance number 2021-497 rezones 1441 Russell Street, parcel ID K1110160003 from RM2 District I1 District Zoning Classification with voluntary conditions of the site will be developed as illustrated on the preliminary site plan drawings dated 9/29/20. Specifically, 1. The existing parcel formerly zoned RM2 will not contain any buildings or driveway. 2. The detention basins and landscaping will occupy the existing parcel formerly zoned RM2. 3. A minimum pavement setback of 80 foot is provided on the south side of the property, 20 foot minimum by ordinance. 4. A variable width buffer of existing woods will remain as depicted on the preliminary site plans. 5. 30 additional landscape buffer trees will be provided beyond ordinance requirements along the east and south property lines adjacent to the single-family residence. 6. Minion Drive will be reconstructed per the agreement or approved engineering standards of the Charter Township of Ypsilanti at the sole cost of the developer. Whereas the Township Board of Trustees agrees that the rezoning is appropriate, now therefore be resolved that the Charter Township of Ypsilanti hereby adopts and incorporates by reference ordinance number 2021-497 attached hereto by reference in its entirety. I would so move the resolution.
Support.
Motion, Gerald Rose, support Eldridge. Discussion, I know the owners are here today, and they were here previous and did a presentation on it. Mr. Winters, is it in proper form? I know there was one other issue we were waiting for on the MREC, which is kind of part of our overall.
Well, this conditional rezoning agreement and the ordinance in the resolution that was read in proper form for the Township Board to act on this evening, there was a condition imposed by the Planning Commission back in October of 2020 that the RNL would help make the necessary intersection improvements to Emmerich Street, which is located in the city of Ypsi, which they have agreed to do. They have notified the city of their willingness to expend the nearly $80,000 to make that improvement. And right now, they're simply waiting for the city to get their attorneys to draft that agreement. But in terms of R&L, from the R&L standpoint, they've agreed to fund that cost, just as they've agreed to fund the nearly $1 million cost for Minion Drive. So it's in proper form for the board to go forward. I believe that R&L has gone on the record as saying they will make that improvement to Emmett Street, but unfortunately, they can't draft an agreement for the city. It has to be done by the city. And so once that's done and they've reviewed it, they'll go forward, I believe. So from our standpoint, we've done all we can do from our standpoint, and they've met every obligation imposed by the Township Planning Commission, and so it's in proper form to go forward. But again, I think the only thing that's hanging out there is something that we don't control, which R&L doesn't control, which is the city has to prepare the agreement for them to sign, which they have indicated they're going to do. There was an opinion of probable cost that was prepared by the city's engineers, which were also OHM, for nearly $80,000. I'm kind of rounding it up. And they've accepted that as being a reasonable cost for those improvements and have stated they're willing to do so. You simply have to have it presented to them in the proper format.
All right. And I did try to get a copy of that and just to find out where that agreement is, but I wasn't successful in doing that before the board tonight, but like Mr. Winter said, it's between those two, but I thought it would be good to have, but I don't have any influence over it, but I tried to get it so that the project is all tidy and it has all the necessary, agreements, but it's not contingent upon our approval, is what Mr. Winters just said, so that sounds good. Are there any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I would just like to add, I did speak with the gentleman here from R&L tonight, and we discussed the hiring process for people re-entering the community, and they do, allow for those things, of course, contingent upon what specific job it is and what their prior history is. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Because this is an ordinance, it's a rezoning, we have to do a roll call, so everyone has to vote individually. Swanson?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Gerald Rowe?
Yes.
Stumbo votes yes. Eldridge?
Yes.
And Wilson?
Yes.
The second reading is approved, so we welcome you and hope you can move quickly. I know it's almost winter, but you're already working and trying to get things done, and thank you for hiring our people and trying to be a good community member, which you are, and we appreciate that. So let's get some people some good jobs and lift them up, right?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2021-28, which is approving contract and authorizing the notice for State Street pump improvements. Clerk Rowe.
I have Resolution 2021-28, approving a contract and authorizing notice for the State Street Pump Station improvements. Minutes of a regular held meeting at the Township Board of the Charter Township of Ypsilanti, County of Washtenaw, State of Michigan, held on the 16th day of November, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. prevailing Eastern Time, with all board members present. The following pre-mill and resolutions will be offered. Whereas it is necessary to acquire and construct certain improvements to the wastewater system consisting of the acquisition, construction, and installation of improvements to the State Street Pump Station in the local unit, including replacement and extension of force main further from the facility, together with all necessary attachments hereto to serve the local unit, and whereas the SRF contract has been prepared between the local unit and the Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority, whereby the authority will issue its bonds on behalf of the local unit to provide the financing of the local unit's share of the cost of acquisition, construction, and installation of the improvements. And whereas this governing body has carefully reviewed the contract and finds that it is It provides the best means for accomplishing the acquisition and construction of the improvements and for providing the needed services. Now therefore it be resolved that, 1, approval of the contract effectiveness. The contract is hereby approved and the supervisor and the clerk of the local body are hereby authorized and directed to execute and deliver the contract for and on behalf of the local unit, provided, however, that the contract shall not become effective until the expiration of 45 days after the publication attached notice as a display advertisement and at least a quarter-sized page in the Washington Legal News, a newspaper of general circulation within the local unit. Which manner of publication is deemed by the governing body to be the most effective manner of informing the taxpayers and electors of the local unit and the details of the proposed contract and the rights of the referendum thereunder. 2, publication of notice. The clerk is directed to publish the attached notice in the newspaper above designated as soon as possible after the adoption hereof. And 3, recension. All resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict with this resolution are hereby repealed. I would so move the resolution.
Support Peterson.
A motion support. Tom?
Good evening, Tom Coles with Miller Canfield. So what you have before you is one of 3 resolutions to consider for 3 various projects. As indicated in the reading, this is for the State Street pump station improvements. The contract between the township and YCUA would authorize YCUA to proceed with issuing bonds to finance these improvements, amount not to exceed $3.6 million. This project does qualify through the state of Michigan and through Eagle financing, which means that as part of that program, the current interest rate on that financing is 1.875%, and that would be a 20-year financing through the state. So the state actually purchases the bonds through the Michigan Finance Authority. The Eagle approves all the permitting and design of the improvements to the system. And then again, this resolution authorizes publication of that notice of entering into the contract. I will state that the contract is in a similar form that YCUA and the township have for many of the issues of bonds that are outstanding and financing various improvements that service not just the township, but to the extent it involves the wastewater treatment plant, both the township and the city and other users of the system. But again, this is exclusively a township project. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
Madam Chair. Tom, would you mind just sort of explaining in the memo from you guys, you really, do a good job of talking about the projects. And I know that myself or the 3 full-time officials, we've had a more in-depth conversation about this, but could you just elaborate a little bit more on why we need to redo the State Street pump?
So I'll leave that to Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you. As you recall, in May of 2019, when we had that significant rainstorm, we had approximately 60 basements back up in the West Willow area. So we knew we had to evaluate the pump station and the sewer mains. We did that. After evaluating the complete area, we decided that we needed to have more capacity in the pump station and more capacity on the suction side and the discharge side of that pump station.
All right. Any other questions or comments from board members? The question I had, and we kind of raised it at the other meeting, is all these funds are now coming. And I know it's 1.75%, but, you add all these numbers up, it's millions upon millions of dollars. And if we qualify, for these funds, and they just passed yesterday, the large infrastructure dollars in the federal government. So I know the first ARP money does include water and sewer improvements. So
yeah, we're keeping an eye on those funds that are going to be coming available. I believe, from what I understand, talking to Mr. Westover today, that those are in legislation right now.
which ones?
I forget which funds they are, but the funds that would apply to us to go towards some of these upgrades.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that when legislation moves on that, which we think will be soon, that some of these projects will qualify. We're hoping.
So, and that's what I just want to make sure is, and we talked about it at the meeting.
Yep.
That just because we're authorizing this doesn't mean we have to formally approve it, you're just starting the process, right? And there's a 45-day period, and there's lots of different, because why spend, ratepayers' dollars if you can get it
Federal
paid
funds.
for, right?
Right.
So I
We'll
don't
continue to
know.
keep an eye on the federal funds and where they at, how they will apply. We'll keep the board updated.
And the state funds, state got billions. The state of Michigan got billions for these kind of things as well. So it is a low interest rate, but it's still a lot of money when you add up all these projects, and we want to do them. So
Sure.
we have to proceed in kind of on a parallel path, see if any of these projects qualify
Sure.
for the state or federal funding,
We
or
will
county,
we
really.
will keep an eye on that, and we will keep you updated, absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll keep advocating as well,
You bet.
and sending emails. But am I correct, Tom? This just authorizes it to?
Yeah, correct. So again, this enters into the contract. Now, there will be further actions to be taken by YCOA in connection with once the bids come in, authorization of actually issuing the bonds. This isn't expected until latter part of January. So to the extent we stick with the program through SRF, the timing would be entering into basically filing all the applications end of January, early February. EGLE would provide their order of approval at the end of February, and proceeds would be available to be drawn at the end of March. So there is a little bit of time, but there's not a ton of time. So one of the aspects that remains is how do these funds end up working their way to local units and through the state, and are they going to go through the clean water, drinking water programs? I think that's still a lot to be determined. So the timing becomes critical as to, do you proceed now into the existing schedules that you have with EGLE and the state, or do you delay, push yourself back to whether another quarter during this fiscal year of the state or a potentially further fiscal year? So can you basically sustain not making the improvements now, waiting to see if federal funds are available? Or are there other already, programs or improvements that will need to be made to the system in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, where most likely if those funds, however those funds will become available, whether directly to the township or through the state, you'll certainly be able to utilize for those programs there. So my understanding from part of that meeting was there's a whole laundry list of improvements that continue to need to be made to the system as the system ages and as you continue to upgrade, that you could utilize those for either future programs, and to the extent we can utilize them for these now, we'll try to do so, but the time is moving quickly on these particular projects.
Right. So it's $150,000 a year, and then it goes up to $215,000. That's a lot, And there's several projects, and we need to do them, and we want to do them. But so it's up to us, perhaps, to we can all be more diligent in trying to get a response from the state or federal government. Can they pay for these? So, thank you. Yes, Trustee Swan.
So I'm just wondering about the other pump stations and what we learned from this one. It sounds like with the flooding in West Willow, I know that the west side of the township has also experienced flooding, overbacking, and Bay. It's not just the township, but actually the city. So are there lessons that we can learn from whatever's happening here that will let us plan for maybe other pump stations that need a similar?
Sure. Yeah, we are evaluating multiple sewer mains and pump stations. However, we still always got to take into account that the rain event that occurred June 25th and 26th, we got 6 to 7 inches of rain in 12 hours. There isn't anything that we could put in place to accommodate that kind of rain event. We can continue to evaluate our system and do our best, but rain events like that, there's not a wastewater system in the United States that's capable of maintaining 7 inches of rain in 12 hours. Systems are erected and constructed based on capacity and normal rain events. But again, it's a really good question, and we're doing our diligence, doing our best to evaluate to see what we can do moving forward, and this is just part of that.
We actually had a meeting on that with Evan Pratt on the west side, and there was extensive flooding there and in the city. So it's in that same area, and what we hope to do is come back and request a study to
Absolutely.
see what caused it, what can we do to try to alleviate some of it,
Right.
connections.
Yeah, and this is basically for sewer systems and storm systems. There were several streets and areas that were just flooded because the storm system couldn't handle it, which means individuals who have sump pumps in their homes, they couldn't handle it. So when they get overwhelmed, water starts coming in through their basement walls. And so it's a big project that we all need to work on.
Jeff, can you also talk about, even though we had that much rain and it caused some very negative effects on our residents, did we have any overflow into the river?
Well, as you know, we upgraded our wastewater treatment plant. Thank you very much for the years of support that you've allowed us to do these projects. We upgraded our filter system, our tertiary filter system. If you recall, back in 2019, there were several times where I sent the board an email indicating that we had to bypass our wastewater treatment plant because our wastewater treatment plant is a 52 or 53 million gallon wastewater treatment plant, and we were experiencing 60 to 65 MGD. Our plant couldn't handle it, so we were bypassing partially treated water into the Rouge River. Since we upgraded our system with the rain event that occurred on the 25th and 26th, we were experiencing 80 MGD, and we didn't have to bypass any wastewater. We had no SSOs, so that's a very good thing, but we still had some negative things occur, like I think we had those 60 or 70 basements in the city, same thing in the township, so those are areas that we're looking at to see what we can do. And those two areas that we had the most backups in, those two subdivisions, a lot of those homes are in a valley, in a gully, so everything flows down. It was flowing massively. So we're looking into that. We had some very positive things occur to our wastewater plant and no SSOs, but we had some negative aspects as well as those two neighborhoods that backed up. So we're looking at everything. So thanks for bringing that up, Brenda.
Yeah, that's a good job.
I have a question.
Sure.
Would it be practical, I know we're talking about the bonds and waiting for the ARPA money. Would it be practical to wait for a certain period of time, start the process of the bonds, but just keep them on hold until there's a drop-dead date of finding out when money will be available? So that, when the money becomes available, the bonds haven't started, because, we don't want to muddle things and have the taxpayers pay something that they don't really need to.
So that's a very good question. It's very smart thinking. However, two of these projects, the State Street Pump Station and the Snow Road Pump Station, we've had sewer overflows, which we had the state of Michigan involved, Eagle. So those cannot wait. If those wait, and then we risk another 60, 70 basements overflowing or backing up in West Willow, or we have an SSO on the Huron, it would not be acceptable. So those have to move forward. And the primary switchgear that we're replacing at the wastewater treatment plant, that's the main electric power source to the plant. It's exceeded its life. It was installed in 1982. We've waited and waited to replace this in its time. Fortunately, as Mr. Cole has said, as we move forward, YCUA has many more projects coming up that we have to do to upgrade our water system, our sewer system, and these funds coming will help. I don't know if they'll help for these projects. We're hoping that it will, but these three projects that we're talking about are scheduled to start construction between all three of them between May and July of 2022. So we're on a tight timeline, and you're thinking very smart, but these sewer projects, they have to happen.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. Any other question? We have a motion and support to approve the first resolution for authorizing a notice for State Street improvements, which is $3.6 million. We'll have to do a roll call vote. Do I have to? Yes, I usually do. Right, Doug, do a bond?
Usually haven't.
I usually do, yeah. Okay, and Swanson,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Gerald Rowe,
Yes.
Stumbo votes yes, Eldridge,
Yes.
and Wilson.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution 2021-29, which is approving a contract and authorizing notice for snow road improvement.
I have Resolution 2129, resolution approving contract and authorizing notice for the snow road improvements. Whereas it is necessary to acquire and construct certain wastewater system improvements consisting of the acquisition, construction, and installation of improvements to the snow road sanitary sewer main in the township, including installation of a new sanitary sewer parallel to the existing pipe, together with all necessary attachments hereto to serve the township. And whereas a contract has been prepared between the township and the Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority, whereby the authority will issue its bonds on behalf of the township to provide for the financing of the township's share of the cost of the acquisition, construction, and installation of the improvements. And whereas the governing body has carefully reviewed the contract and finds that it provides the best means for accomplishing the acquisition and construction and the improvements and for providing the needs of services. Now therefore it be resolved that 1, approval of contract effectiveness. The contract is hereby approved and the supervisor and the township clerk of the township are hereby authorized and directed to execute and deliver the contract for and on behalf of the township. Provided, however, that the contract shall not become effective until the expiration of 45 days after the publication of the attached notice of a displayed advertisement in at least a quarter-page size in the Washtenaw Legal News, a newspaper of general circulation within the township, which manner of publication is deemed by the governing body to be the most effective manner of informing the taxpayers and electors of the township of the details of the proposed contract and the rights of referendum thereunder. 2, publication of notice. The clerk is directed to publish the attached notice in the newspaper above designated as soon as possible after the adoption hereof. 3, reimbursement declarations. The township makes the following declarations for the purpose of complying with reimbursement rules of Treasury Regulations 1.150-2 pursuant to the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. A, as of the date hereof, the township reasonably expects to reimburse itself for expenditures described in B below with proceeds of debt to be incurred by the township. B, the expenditures described in this paragraph B are for the cost of the acquiring and constructing of improvements which were or will be paid subsequent to 60 days prior to the date hereof. C, the maximum principal amount of debt expected to be issued for the improvements, including insurance costs, shall not exceed $6,900,000. 4, recension. All resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict with this resolution are hereby repealed. I would so move the resolution.
Support.
Motion Giroux, support Eldridge. Questions or comment? Do you want to talk about this improvement?
Yes, I would just like to say that again, in 2019, we have a snow road pump station, and we have a river crossing, and during that massive rain event, we had a sanitary overflow into the Huron River. Again, this is the one where Eagle was involved, and we had to come up with a plan to correct this in case we got a heavy rain again. This didn't happen again when we got the June 25th and 26th event, but it did happen in 2019. So we evaluated the entire system, the Snow Road Pump Station and the river crossing, and decided with Eagle support that we need to install a parallel sewer main that goes across the Huron there. And the most practical method is to open cut. And when you open cut a river, you run into several other items with birds and snakes, and that we have to pull permits for and have to have evaluated. But that is what this is for. And we have all of our contract communities also flow through this pipe, so they will be paying their share of this bond, which is about 50%.
Questions or comment? So this payment is $450,000, right? At the end of it, it goes to 2042. So how much of the other contract community, I really think we owe it to try to find, because this is going to increase our rates. And I know you guys say it won't, but it will. It has to. How can you pay $850,000 additional fees a year and not increase your rates? I don't know.
Because we will have other bonds dropping off. And this will take their place.
Well, I'd like to see those numbers, but I'm just, I'm nervous. I'm getting nervous because I know we need to do it and I want to do them. And I know we have to do something, but I don't, I'm just torn on this, Jeff, you know.
So this project isn't one that's going through the state through SRF financing. This will be one that would be sold on the open market. So to the extent that there's more control over timing, this is the one project where there's more control over timing because we're not stuck with what the state has agreed to, what quarter to finance the bond issue. So this would be one that we're selling out to the open market. Again, there is the concerns about timing and contracting and when you're going to get in, do the project. But fundamentally, it is a different, there are different factors involved because we don't have the state saying we're going to finance on this particular quarter. So there is a little bit more leeway to analyze are other funds available, when they available, and Brent, answer your questions as to how does this factor into what debt service is due in totality with those other bonds dropping off and these potentially coming on, and look at that kind of rate analysis.
Okay. 'Cause that means this rate might be a little higher because it's not SRF.
Correct.
But the open market bonds allow us to structure our payments the way we feel need fit, especially with bonds dropping off.
So you see, we've structured debt service to kind of wrap it around existing debt. So when we say that, that means that instead of paying the same amount of principal every year, say $300,000, just to take a number, you can have lower principal in the earlier years because there's existing debt that's out there that already has principal maturing. And then you can wrap this around there so that you are trying to do level debt service, not just on this particular issue, but on all debt that the township has outstanding with respect to these systems. So that's how statements can be made as to there's an expectation that rates wouldn't change because it's being wrapped together with all the existing debt that the township has. And so it'll be level overall as opposed to just this particular issue. So the amortization schedule that's actually built into the contract, you'll see that there are much smaller principal payments in the earlier years, larger principal payments in the latter years, because it's being wrapped around the existing debt.
Yeah, I think it starts at 225,000, goes to 450,000, and you have a 5% interest rate?
That's a maximum, right? So what we're trying to do is the expectation is that rate will be somewhere in the 3.5% now. Again, could it be better than that? Potentially, but we're talking about getting into the market sometime early next year. So the trends, our interest rates are creeping up. Again, we don't have a locked-in rate like we do through the state programs. So we are subject to market risk. And again, YCUA and the township have really good credit ratings, so we're hopeful that we'll get very positive rates, whatever those rates may be at that time. And the expectation from Paul Stouter at PFM was they would be somewhere in the 3.5% range.
And the $6.9 million bond is 50%, I heard you say, Jeff?
Yes, our contract communities that flow through there would be Pittsfield Township, Superior Township, Augusta Township. They would pay their share, and that's approximately 50%.
And this is on Snow Road where it goes under the river.
Under the Huron, yep.
And we have a large pipe and a small pipe
Correct.
connecting, which we don't know when they did that.
Exactly.
So it wasn't good engineering, really, the way
You could
they
say
did.
that.
I'm trying to be nice about it,
But when this was created and erected, there was no rain events like this, and now we're getting them, and we have to prepare for them.
Yeah, but even if you built a larger, based on what you said, you can never prepare for the rain events.
That is correct.
And that's not why you're doing this. You're not doing this because of rain events. You're doing it because you have,
It's bottlenecked. Yes,
yeah.
exactly, yes.
So we need to make it right size to fit the
Yep.
larger pipe, right? Is
Yep.
that what it is? So, and this, I'm sorry to be asking these questions, but I'm nervous about this. And we have to do a lot of work and try to get people to see the investment and the opportunity indexed areas so that we can use the dollars that we're getting from state, county, and federal, and even our local dollars can help with it.
Right. While we're on this topic, the next project of the primary switchgear, the cost of that, Our contract communities and WTUA combined will be paying approximately 70% of that one.
I have a question. So,
Yes, Mr. Newman?
will all these projects be combined together as far as the amortization you were speaking about?
So the obligation of the township won't be one, it'll be separate for each of them because they're for different projects. So, and they're financed in different manners. For example, the two that are anticipated to go through the state, one of them involves the township, that's the State Street one. The switchgear involves the township and the city because it's at the wastewater treatment plant. So those are financed separately, differently, but fundamentally, at the end of the day, there will be kind of a single obligation. You know, the township has a obligation to pay debt service on the particular bonds that are issued for its benefit. So again, I don't know how the payments actually get made directly, whether that's something that gets, maybe Dwayne could address that question. But fundamentally, we are issuing three separate pieces of debt, three separate bond issues to finance these projects. So there will be the obligation to pay those three, but how it actually happens from a payment perspective, I think it comes out of the rates that are collected at at YCUA.
Okay.
On the township's piece of it, so.
So they all have three different expiration dates?
Well, potentially, the two, so when you start repaying the state's debt, it comes in, when you start paying principal is within a year of when you're actually placing the actual system in service. So whenever the improvements are completed. So I believe we've got those amortizations laid out in each of the contracts, which they're all going to start relatively around the same time. I think 2023 for the switchgear.
And all of these cannot wait until the state, till we see how much we're going to get from the state? I mean, I know some of them, but all of them. All of these projects can't wait until we get any other funding?
Again, I think it's very smart thinking in that manner, but my answer straightforward would be absolutely not.
Okay.
We could never risk having an SSO in the Huron River. Eagle, it would not be acceptable.
Okay.
Knowing that we evaluated the State Street pump station and we decided that we need to increase capacity on the station and the upstream and the downstream water mains, sewer mains, and if there was another significant rain event that occurred and we had 100 backups, we'd be responsible. It would not be acceptable. The switchgear, if it's right now deteriorating, parts are obsolete. If it went bad, we wouldn't have any power to run our wastewater treatment plant. It wouldn't be acceptable. So these three projects are absolutely critical.
And to answer your question, they would all start principal payments in 2023 and go for a 20-year period to 2042. But at least one of them, and the ones through the state will be level debt service from each. Oh, there we go, sorry. But the one project, the Snow Road, we could, again, wrap that one around. So that's the only amortization that looks slightly different from level because we're trying to wrap that around the existing debt because we're going to the open market. But they all would start in 2023 through 2042 is the current plan for repayment.
And once those, and one last question, once those projects are complete, you don't anticipate any other critical projects that will require funding? I mean, is there something in the pipeline now?
We have many projects in the pipeline on the water side and the wastewater side moving forward for the next 10 years that if we get these funds, if that's your question, that we may be able to utilize those funds coming. Yes, we have many projects.
Okay. I mean, if that will require more money, because say, for instance, if all the ARPA money runs out with all the projects that you have and the bonds run out, and will there be more down the road that will require even more funding? I know that's an extreme example.
We do a pretty good job with our capital improvements and all of our improvements moving forward. As far as, if your question is if we're going to run out of funding and have to do more projects and have to increase rates, I don't think that's going to happen. I can't make promises, but I don't think that's going to happen. This is why we're doing these projects now. This is why we did our projects 5 years ago, and this is why we'll do some more projects in another couple years. But I would like to say, just to educate everyone, that anytime that there is a upgrade at our wastewater treatment plant, that is paid for by both the city and the township and all of our contract communities. Okay, so anything that's done at the wastewater treatment plant is to be paid for about 70% by our contract communities. The pump station at State Street, that's just a Ypsilanti Township pump station to our customers, so that's a township bond. The Snow Road, that's in the township, but we have 3 or 4 communities flow through there, so they're going to pay half of that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Peterson?
I have no question.
Oh, okay. Trustee Swanton?
So I had one question about the water being discharged into the Rouge and Eagle getting involved. I'm wondering, does Eagle get involved when when Ann Arbor discharges wastewater into the Huron River, which then comes to our community? Because it sounds like we're urgently trying to take care of something that Eagle wants cared for, but I don't sense that same urgency when things are frequently discharged into the Huron River.
That's a really hard question to answer. As far as YCUA, as far as like the State Street pump station and our filters that we just upgraded and the Snow Road crossing that we're getting ready to do, we're doing this because of the events that occurred, and we want to do it, and we have Eagle's blessing, and they're encouraging us to do it. Eagle's not forcing us to do it. They're recommending we do it, because if we don't, then we're going to run into violations if we have an SSO. So when I say that in the past, we bypassed our wastewater treatment plant before we upgraded our filters, it sounds worse than what it is. We never bypassed raw sewage. It was all treated water. It just wasn't fully treated, which is, as far as Ann Arbor, I believe that it was raw sewage. We haven't had that, and I'm thankful of that, but I can't really comment on Ann Arbor on what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how Eagle is overseeing them. My hands are full with YCUA in our projects. But that's a good question.
So the only other thing I'd want to express is appreciation. I think that YCUA was a very forward-thinking idea for our community, and I'm grateful that infrastructure is taking care of people, and I'm grateful that we have a utility authority that we have some level of control over, because it's our community. So I am expressing my gratitude and appreciation for the fact that we have something that maybe doesn't seem like a polished kind of thing, but we're really very fortunate to have this in our community.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments.
Other comments or questions? Just on the record, we do want to make sure that we try to get the funding for it. So, we have to sign these documents and stuff, but I just want to assure the board that we will try to get the funding for it, because we're teed up. We have engineering and everything. So, we're in a very good position, whereas other municipalities may not be. So we might come to the top
That's
of the
right.
list for the
We're ready.
funding.
We're ready.
Because YCUA is ahead of it. And I do also know that you went out before and tried to do the Snow Road pump station upgrade, is that right? Or one of the upgrades, and the bids came in way higher than we anticipated last year.
Yes, we went out for bids last year during COVID, and contractors were scarce, and the bids were just outrageous. So we try to remove some bells and whistles, reword a few things, and these bids came in much better.
And that could happen on these. These could come in much higher than the estimated amount that we have now, because
It's a possibility.
everyone's charging more,
It's a possibility.
Yeah, we just don't know, right? So, but, all right.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and support. Roll call vote. Swanson?
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Joe Rowe,
Yes.
Stumbo votes yes, Eldridge,
Yes.
and Wilson.
Yes.
Is that the third one?
We have one more.
Yeah.
Lord have mercy. I'm worried to death, and we got one more. Number 3 is Resolution 2021-30, approving contract and authorizing notice for primary switchgear. Clerk Rowe?
I have Resolution 2021-30, resolution approving contract and authorizing notice for the primary switchgear. Whereas it is necessary to acquire and construct certain improvements to the wastewater treatment plant consisting of replacing of the primary switchgear for the electrical supply to the plant, together with all attachments hereto to serve the township and the city of Ypsilanti. Whereas a contract has been prepared among the township, the city, and the Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority, whereby the authority will issue the bonds on behalf of the township and the city to provide for the financing of costs of the project. And whereas this governing body has carefully reviewed the contract and finds that it provides with the best means of accomplishing the project and for providing the needs of services, now therefore it be resolved that 1, the contract is hereby approved, and the supervisor and the clerk of the township are hereby authorized and directed to execute and deliver the contract for and on behalf of the township. Provided, however, that the contract shall not become effective until the expiration of 45 days after the publication of the attached notice as a displayed advertisement of at least a quarter-size page in the Washtenaw Legal News, a newspaper of general circulation within the township, which manner of publication is deemed by the governing body to be the most effective manner of informing the taxpayers and electors of the township of the details of the proposed contract and the rights of referendum thereunder. 2, the township clerk is directed to publish an attached notice in the newspaper above designated as soon as possible after the adoption hereof. 3, all resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict with this resolution be and are hereby repealed. I would so move the resolution.
Support.
Motion, Joe Rowe, support Eldridge. You want to talk about?
Again, as I stated earlier, this is the primary switchgear, the main electrical part and system that operates our complete wastewater treatment plant. It's been in place since 1982. It's starting to deteriorate. Parts are obsolete. And this project, we're requesting this to be approved as well, of course. And again, I'd like to remind you that our contract communities will pay 70% of this bond.
Questions or comment? When you have the payment amount, bond schedule in here, is that the Ypsilanti Township portion, or is that the?
That's the total. That's the total. So that's not, so the township would be responsible for a portion of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the total bond issues. Because it's the contract involves both the city and the township. It has the total dollar amount in there.
Okay.
The city did approve they approved the contract and authorized publication of the notice at their November 2nd meeting. And I believe they
so
published their notice last week.
The full faith and credit, though, is Ypsi Township because it's in Ypsi Township. Is that correct?
Both communities pledge full faith and credit because you both get the benefit of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. The switchgear. Once again, we'll try to get some additional dollars. We have a motion support. Any other questions? Hearing none. Swanson?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Gerald Rowe?
Yes.
Stumbo votes yes. Eldridge?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
And welcome, Luke. Luke, are you from this area originally?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were Ypsilanti. Yeah, you,
I currently reside in Ypsilanti Township.
huh?
I currently reside in Ypsilanti Township.
Yeah, okay.
I was actually born in Superior Township, but I've always been from this area.
Cool.
One of the questions I asked.
Yeah, that's, all right. Let's see if we can get some money, everybody. And Jeff, is this our last meeting we'll ever see? I'm not going to cry, but I am going to miss you so much. You've been just a really helpful person for our residents and for us board members, but
I appreciate that. The last 10 years, it's been an honor to be the director of YCUA and receive all the support, not just for YCUA, but for me personally. And, you know, working for YCUA for 37 years has provided everything. So, you know, I'm indebted to our customers, and I'll always be there for a phone call. I told Luke I'm just a text away. I'll always be there for you. We're bringing in a very good individual with Luke Blackburn. He's an expert in wastewater, air emissions, mercury, everything. Unfortunately, I'm taking a lot of history and a lot of knowledge with me, but I'll be there for anybody all the time. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great leader. Number 4 is a request of approval of proposal for groundworks for outdoor wireless internet in the amount of $3,610, which is budgeted and paid for by the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Grant.
So move.
Motion Rowe, Gerald Rowe,
Support Peterson.
support Peterson.
Just here to answer any questions. This is going to be the least dollar amount thing you have on your agenda, I think, tonight. It's going to cost the township.
It's
It costs the township zero. It's refunded by grant funding, and the purpose is to get the wireless out into the parking lot so our residents and users can utilize their devices from the parking lot rather than using precious bandwidth from their phones.
Okay. So, because we currently have Wi-Fi, but this is enhanced, or?
This will go out into the parking lot, actually. So rather than having people in the building utilizing it, they can go to the privacy of their vehicle. Because by background, we're still doing everything primarily via Zoom. So people can attend court hearings if they don't have Wi-Fi at home or have low bandwidth on their phones. They can come here, park in the parking lot, and participate from the privacy of their vehicle rather than being in the lobby where other people can hear their business and things of that nature. So it's the funding was granted, was approved by the grant for the purposes of these additional challenges from COVID.
Great. All right. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is this the entire parking lot around the Civic Center?
Front parking lot.
Front?
Yeah, the antenna will mount on the court side of the building and push out towards the parking lot from there.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Number 5 is request to approve adopting the annual exemption option as set forth in 2011 Public Act 152, the Publicly Funded Health Insurance Contribution Act. Clerk Rowe, Gerald Rowe. No, you don't. I thought it was a resolution. I apologize.
That's okay. But so move.
Support.
Do we have a motion support? This is an annual exemption that we do at the board level for employees. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved. Number 6 is budget amendment number 14.
I have a budget amendment number 14. Sorry, a lot of reading tonight. Move to increase the general fund budget by $853 to $9,963,201 and approve the line item changes. And move to increase the hydro station fund budget by $26,900 to $537,527 and approve the department line item changes as outlined. And move to increase the compost fund budget by $29,263 to $734,187 and approve the line item changes as outlined. One of these, the general operations, is for a PTO payout at 75%. The hydro station is to increase the budget revenue is higher than expected this year. And the compost fund is for a PTO payout as well as increasing the budget for a healthcare expenditure payout. I would so move the budget amendment.
Support Peterson.
We have a motion and support. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have authorization and bids, a request to seek proposals for an irrigation system renovation, including design and construction services at Green Oaks Golf Course, and this will come back before the board.
So move.
Motion, Gerald Rowe.
Support Peterson.
Questions or comments?
And Madam Chair, you did say this is going to come back before the board.
Absolutely.
With a couple of
absolutely.
Bids.
Oh, yeah, it's going out for bid, yeah. And the system's 51 years old, so it's kind of breaking down, bless its heart. They do a lot of repairs to the lines and stuff,
I
and
think we looked at this last time, we were waiting to get approval. Is that
Yep.
correct?
it'll come back, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
So we have a motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. There's no other business. Is there any board member updates? I'm sorry we didn't get to it in the work session. No? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support Peterson.
Motion and support to adjourn at
8:24.
8:24. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting's adjourned.